Hello and welcome to this primary election debate for Republican candidates for Arizona's governor. This debate is sponsored by Clean Elections, the state's nonpartisan voter education agency. My name is Kathleen Bate.
And I'm Danielle Lerner, and we will be co-moderating tonight's debate. And we are sharing this debate as part of an effort to support democracy in Arizona through a partnership with the Citizens Clean Elections Commission, the Arizona Media Association, and Reister. It is a partnership designed to make these debates accessible to all voters in Arizona.
And that means that this debate and dozens more between now and November will air on a long list of local TV stations, radio stations, and digital platforms, including support from local newspapers. It is a shared effort between hundreds of local media brands across Arizona. The format of this debate may be familiar to you, and we've tried to keep the rules simple. Each candidate will have up to 1 minute to make an opening statement, and the same for a closing statement. Candidates have drawn straws to determine the order of each of those portions of this debate. Throughout the debate, we will pose questions to each candidate, allow them to answer, and then make sure the other candidate has a chance to respond.
Whenever a question is directed to a specific candidate, only that candidate's microphone will be open. At all other times, every microphone will be open. And thank you to voters all across Arizona who have submitted questions for this debate. We've reviewed all of them to make sure every voice is heard. However, no candidates have been given advanced access to any of these questions.
And with that, let's introduce the Republican primary candidates for this debate. Andy Biggs, Ken Miceli, Scott Neely, and David Schweikert. And Andy Biggs, we're going to start with you. You have the first opening statement.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Andy Biggs. I'm running for governor because we can't afford Katie Hobbs any longer. I have served the state as a prosecutor. As the state Senate president, I wrote balanced budgets, which actually helped us grow our economy. I've been a member of Congress standing up for conservative values while delivering for the state of Arizona. And in so doing, I've built a tremendous coalition of support across the state, across the spectrum of our party, from Donald Trump, the president, Charlie and Erica Kirk, to more than 45 current and former state representatives and senators, to the MAHA movement, law enforcement. In fact, today, Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell endorsed my candidacy. And they all know one thing. We need strong, steady leadership to restore the American dream to Arizona. So my wife and I, Cindy, we've been married for 45 years. We've lived in Gilbert and raised our kids, our 6 children. We know how great this state can be, and we want it to be great. And I am the leader that can bring that strong, steady leadership.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Biggs. Scott Neely, you have 1 minute.
Hi, my name is Scott Neely. I am a candidate for Arizona governor. I'm a builder. I'm a small business owner. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. And I'm currently out there building the border wall to protect Arizona. We're building the border wall of freedom and independence because we want to make Arizona safe. We want to bring back jobs to the Arizona people. As a matter of fact, one of my top initiatives that I would like to work with the legislature on to get a bill to my desk to sign as governor is to allow us to use ESA money for the trades. We need to bring trades back to the Arizona landscape. It's a national security issue. We don't have enough people in the trades in America any longer, and we're booting out a lot of the people that are here doing the trades, so we're going to need replacements in the trades, and those are the American people. I've been in the trades my entire life. I've been in business 25 years of my life. I bring leadership to Arizona. We need to try something new. We need to do something different. We need to be bold. We need to bring new ideas to the state. We need to solve the water crisis problem, and I'm here to do that for you, Arizona. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Neely, thank you. We turn it over to Congressman Schweikert for your opening statement.
Hi there. My name is David Schweikert. Born in an unwed mother's home in L.A., adopted by a family, brought here to Arizona, grew up right down the street from where we're all standing. ASU, undergrad, MBA there. Incredibly blessed. My wife and I have a 3-year-old and a 10-year-old. In my political resume, I was in the leadership of the state legislature as a very young man, chaired the Board of Equalization, have been the Maricopa County Treasurer, and now I'm the Dean of the Congressional Delegation. I'm number 4 in Ways and Means. I also chair the Oversight in Ways and Means. I also am blessed to chair something they call the Joint Economic Committee. I do the economic projections and calculations for our country. Our family business, we manage money, we've always bought real estate. I've been blessed to actually put together lots of economics here in Arizona, and I'm here to try to save the future of this state.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schweikert. And Ken Miceli, you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Well, thank you and good evening, everyone. My name is Ken Miceli. I'm running for governor. I grew up here in this state. I'm one of 6 kids. I'm Italian. We love our food, so you know I'm going to do everything I can to get grocery prices down. So with that said, I'm a builder. I've been in business for 30 years. I've employed many people, still employ many people. We have a lot of need for fixing problems here in this state, water being one. I have a plan for water. I have a plan that you probably have seen in my Union State address. We've gone into detail on each plan. I'm very excited to share that with you and for you to review that when possible. Other than that, I'm glad to be here with these fine fellows. We have a couple of fellows from Washington, and we have a couple of builders here from Arizona. So thank you for the opportunity to share with you what we can do to make Arizona better.
All right, Mr. Miceli, thank you for that. And we'll get to water security shortly, a very important issue right now in Arizona. But we want to talk about electability because one of you up here is going to go on to run against the current governor, Katie Hobbs, a Democrat in the general election. So, Mr. Biggs, we will start with you. What is the biggest difference between you and the other Republicans on this stage? And what evidence can you point to specifically that you can win over independents, who are a big part of the electorate here, and also suburban voters?
Yeah, so here's the way to think of it. In every poll that's been released, I am the most competitive Republican in the entire state with Katie Hobbs. I'm the only member of this stage, on this stage today, that has ever polled ahead of Katie Hobbs as a Republican. And here's the bottom line. I know how to reach across the aisle, and when people find that out, they find that rewarding and refreshing. I joined with the former head of the Black Caucus and now the Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, to actually put together the JACK Act, which is to fight corruption. And guess what? We have a governor who's under criminal investigation for pay-to-play schemes. We don't want that, and neither do independent voters. What they want is the same thing all of us want, and that is affordability. They want security and safety, and they want to know that their children have the best opportunity to get an education. And I carry that message. I worked so well with the opposition that just a week or two ago, I passed yet another bill unanimously out of the House with my original co-sponsor was the Democrat from Virginia. We worked together. I worked with Kirsten Sinema to get the Right to Try bill out, which I led on. I worked with former Senator John McCain, and we got the Ashland Mike Amber Alert and Indian Country bill out. These are bills and legislation which shows that I know how to work across the aisle and work with people who don't necessarily agree with me on many things. But we find the ways to agree, we find those points of agreement, and we go forward and we get the job done. And I have a long history of that, whether it was in the state legislature or whether it's been in Congress. And there's not a doubt in my mind, if you look at the polling data that you're going to find, I am the most competitive with Katie Hobbs of anybody on this stage and any Republican in the state. Thank you.
Mr. Schweikert, you also have years in Washington as well. So what differentiates you from the others on the stage, and why the decision to run for governor? Why now?
It actually is back to your electability question. I've probably won more competitive races than anyone in Arizona in 25 years. I functionally have a 50-50 district. And Arizona today actually has more independent voters than even Republicans. So some of the things being said here border on sort of absurd. Someone like myself, you have to earn it. If you're a conservative, you have to go and explain prosperity is moral. Show up in neighborhoods, show up in places that are uncomfortable, and draw them in to saying voting for a conservative is how you bring prosperity back to Arizona. And once again, I will tell you, I'm the only one that's done it year after year after year. Think about this. Over the last 6 years, I'm told I'm the Democrats' most expensive loss in America. And that's demonstration that they've thrown everything at me. You know, these are wonderful people, but they've never actually been in the great battle.
All right, thank you so much for your answer. Mr. Neely, we'll turn it to you. You previously ran for governor in 2022 and only received about 3% of the primary vote and later lost a bid for mayor of Mesa. Why should Republican primary voters believe that you can build a coalition to win this time around?
Well, my opponents have spent years in government. We still have a water crisis. They've spent years creating red tape and regulation that's made it hard on Ken and my businesses. Growing businesses in Arizona has been very difficult under the extreme regulations of this state that have been voted on by Democrats and Republicans. So I'm actually here for the people to bring new ideas and new solutions that are going to solve problems. I'm a builder. I'm a guy who writes paychecks every Friday. I'm a guy who's been in business almost half my life, 25 years out of the 45 years I've been on planet Earth. I mean, we've already seen it with Donald Trump. You know, somebody who's never been in politics before has made such sweeping changes to the United States of America during a decade. And I can bring that same sweeping change to the state of Arizona as your next Arizona governor. I'm a man of the people. I have the endorsement of the people of the state of Arizona. I'm the guy that's out there building the border wall, hands-on. I got a smashed hand from working on the border wall a month ago. I smashed my hand out on the wall. I got drone footage of me on the wall actually pumping concrete into that wall. You're not going to find somebody more boots on the ground than me that's going to work with the people of Arizona to solve its actual problems, which is a water crisis, which is an affordability housing crisis. A lot of that's tied to permitting and regulations. We need to simplify the systems and make it easier to get permits. For example, in Mesa, after Mark Freeman was elected mayor, it took me 14 months to get a permit to do work on my house. That's quite ridiculous. And it's causing the housing crisis. When you cannot get permitting through for 14 months, that causes issues. That causes bottlenecks, which raises the price of building. So I'm going to work on those types of things, as well as bring a fresh new face to Arizona politics. I'm the candidate that people of Arizona can believe in. Please vote for me. Scott Neely for Arizona governor. Go to neelyforgovernor.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. And Mr. Miceli, you're running against candidates who have greater name recognition and more elected experience. So why should Republicans voters choose you as a political outsider?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. First of all, people want a political outsider. They are very confused with the typical Washington play. They're trying to figure out who to vote for, who's the best of either evil. But my plan is working with, as what Scott just said, working with the housing planning. We are way behind with housing planning. Permits. You should not have a permit longer than 6 months. It should be only 6 weeks. And once I'm in as governor, I will make it a rule to have permits within 6 weeks. Why? Because a developer like myself has to hold the material, they have to manage the labor. They hope the labor will still be there in 6 months. There's so many variables with the housing crisis. I also have plans for veterans, for them to give them a small container home. Give them an address, give them opportunity for a job, give them something, dignity. I would not be sitting here if it wasn't for our veterans out there fighting for us. So am I going to give back to the veterans? Of course. That's going to be one of my priorities. So I appreciate that question. We also have many plans for the water solution in this state. I can hold up a plan right now that we have with the water solutions. But if you go on my website, votekenmiceli.com, you'll see all the plans in detail. Well, thank you.
Mr. Miceli, thank you. All of you have brought up the water crisis. You've also been bringing up development, kind of two opposing forces there. Arizona is running out of water. That's a fact. But our cities keep on growing. That's a fact. Would you, we'll start with you, Mr. Schweikert, hit the brakes on housing construction, or would you continue to encourage development despite the water issues?
Yeah, first off, we're not running out of water. What we have is the stress on the upper basin, lower basin. Sorry to geek out a little bit. It's the Colorado River. Internal water supplies, we've actually done a terrific job managing. If you go back years ago, actually the groundwater recharge districts were something I actually did in the legislature. Now it's about to pay off. Look,
then why are you calling it a water crisis? Can you explain that?
No, you called it the water crisis. I was responding to you. It is a crisis, but it's what wet water is available to us. So our stress right now is the Central Arizona project. You actually see the agreement to have a discussion in regards to buying the excess water out of San Diego County. Here's your math problem on some of that desalinization. We're going to probably have to do it, but that's $3,000 an acre foot. Our internal water we have here in Arizona is $300 an acre foot. So a bit of trivia for you. What is the #1 water user in Arizona? And it's been this way for 40 years. It's cattle feed. 47% of Arizona's water actually goes to cattle feed. So when you start to actually look at the hierarchy of an acre of homes, particularly if it's an acre of homes that goes into where agriculture was, you actually end up with excess water supply. So it's an allocation, it's a distance problem, it's a price problem, it's a power problem. And if you're going to build a plan to stabilize Arizona's water so you can also encourage and stabilize Arizona's growth, if you come to my home, on our board and the wall, we've actually put up 100 different things. You need about 15 of them to stabilize Arizona's water. Everything from raising Bartlett Lake to a diversion dam where the siphon is, all the way down to certain plants. In the middle are leaky pipes, of all things. It is manageable. It's not going to be free. You have to do sort of an all-in approach of saying, here's our optionalities, and here's what we can afford, and what gets us the water supply that's required.
Something else that is putting strain on our water situation are data centers. Now, Governor Hobbs just signed a budget bill that does impose a 3-year moratorium on new sales tax breaks for data centers. And so, Mr. Biggs, we'll go to you with this one. Is this the right move, or what would you do differently?
Yeah, it is the right move at this time. When you think about it, data processing centers are going to chew up probably 350 to 650 megawatts of power, depending on the size of that data processing center. They're going to use water. And quite frankly, it's a scrambled egg situation. I've been all over the state. I've talked to mayors. I've talked to councils. And some support it. They want to have it. Others don't. But here's where the real rub is. Where's the power going to come from, and where's the water going to come from, right? So it is a great idea that the legislature put together. That I'm grateful that the governor finally signed a budget that had it in it, where you put that moratorium. I've actually met with data processing center brokers. I've talked with them. I said, here's what will happen. Under an Andy Biggs administration as governor, we're not going to have those credits or subsidies. You're not going to be treated special any longer. And we're going to find a way for you to create your own power so where you can get it to your system. Now, that's going to take some creativity, and that'll take some time. But they should not be given a break, and it should not impact current commercial or consumers with regard to power and water. Now, on the waterfront, there's a center in my own district out in East Mesa, and what they do is they actually recycle their water. And that is the move that all of them are willing to go to. They're also all willing to eat the cost of building the infrastructure. Nobody in Arizona, no consumer of residential or commercial should be paying for the infrastructure for that project. And so that's where we sit on that. Now, let me just tell you, I have been one of the leaders in Congress in trying to get water to us. It was my lead working with Greg Stanton that got $350 million released from the federal government to work on mitigation on water-related issues. It is my lead with working with Mark Kelly and others that has also got the Flaming Gorge backup of about 650,000 acre-feet released, and they still have more that they could release to help us. Without that, we would have a little bit more tough time, but I will say one thing. I will agree with one of my colleagues who just said it. We don't have a water shortage. We have a water management issue. And you need someone who knows water, like I do, who can get in and manage that.
Mr. Miceli, let's go to you because you've talked about potential solutions like desalination plants. What level of investment, if you were governor, would you make into the water infrastructure?
Well, first of all, let me, for the record, 70% of our water goes to agriculture, 70%. We're currently at 32% full at Lake Powell. That's how low we are. This is the driest season we've ever experienced. That condition was actually voted on in 1922 in Colorado. And by the way, did you know that Colorado, they, if something happens to where they've got to cut water, they are going to cut it first from Arizona versus the other 5 states. So we are in a crisis. My plan is to generate new ways of bringing in more water through the flow of rainfill and expanding our aquifers. So that's what our plan is. I have a plan. I don't know if these other gentlemen have a plan, but I have a plan. And that's what you're going to see when you look at my Union State Address.
All right, thank you so much for that. And Mr. Neely, what is your plan?
We have to have an all of the above approach to water. And there's many different ways we can manage and solve the water problems of Arizona. So number one, we can turn back online the Yuma desalination plant. That was the experimental plant built by the Army Corps of Engineers in the 1990s. We can pump water. We can make a deal with Mexico to pump water from the Sea of Cortez, salt water to that plant, desalinate there, build a micronuclear plant right next to it so that it has its own power supply. These data centers are going to take a lot of water. They can't do a closed loop system with their water because if you do a closed loop system, it causes it to heat itself up. So you have to have an open loop system in these power plants for water. So if you have an open loop system though, and you're pumping that water back into the ground through the facility and back into the ground, it pollutes the ground over time. So I will not allow data centers in the state of Arizona unless they build their own desalination plants at the data centers at a cost to them. We give them no tax subsidies. They build their own desal plants, so when they suck their water through and they push it back out, they don't pollute our environment. And they're gonna build their own power supplies. And I'm gonna advocate for micronuclear in the state of Arizona so that the data centers can have their own micronuclear plants so it doesn't affect our utility rates as consumers. I've watched my rates go through the roof. I was part of the crew that went out and helped to decommission.
Sorry, Mr. Neely, you're going over time.
Oh, sorry, didn't see it. My apologies.
Oh, no, thank you for your answer. We want to get to the cost of living. You talked about utilities. That's certainly one of the ways that Arizonans are being squeezed. Higher costs for housing, as you know, groceries, you name it. What is the single most effective thing or action that a governor can take for some immediate relief to lower the cost of living for Arizonans, and how would you pay for it? And Mr. Schweikert, I'll direct this to you because you've also mentioned that you've pledged to eliminate the state income tax. That is not the fact? Oh, I'm sorry. We'll talk to you about that then. I apologize for making that error.
It's
yeah,
okay.
it is, Mr. Biggs. I apologize for that. But we will get to you about that because we want to know how you'd pay for it. But we'll start with you. And how would you pay for?
Yeah, your problem is the state income tax is basically 31% of the appropriated budget. And the cuts, you'd have to double Arizona's property tax. That's why there's some structural design problem. All right, let's actually talk about affordability.
Yes.
Arizona now is 43rd on the stack of affordability. It's pretty miserable out there. When you actually do the years of the Biden inflation, the inflation regimen, wage growth has been somewhat anemic compared to that inflation. Our brothers and sisters in this state are poorer today than they were just a few years ago. But you don't magically make prices start to come down. What you have to do as governor, get off your backside, recruit every great business you can so there's competition for your willingness to work. That competition raises wages. The most powerful thing you can do for affordability in the short term is the raising of wages. Then you have to deal with infrastructure type issues. So supplies, freight, everything moves much more efficiently. That's how you also get downward pressure on pricing. Let's actually move on to housing, which is actually one of the big drivers of this being an unaffordable market now. We actually sit on some amazing assets around us. The state trust land that's in the urban area, we're skipping over it, running sewer, water, power to neighborhoods a mile, 2 miles over. The mismanagement of our state trust lands and bringing that to market. I actually have a degree in finance and housing. And the basic economics of the way you create affordability in housing is two things. It's supply and wage growth. We can actually do both of those, and those are both in the touch point of a governor. Fix the way we bring and access to our real estate so we can build that next generation of homes for our kids, and the things of bringing jobs here so we can raise wages.
Mr. Biggs, let's revisit the sales tax. You have pledged to eliminate the state income tax, not sales tax. That accounts for half of Arizona's budget. And so with the state already facing a massive deficit, what are you prepared to cut?
Well, I just have to correct you on one thing. That doesn't represent half of our state budget. The state budget for this year is $18 billion. It represents about $4.4 to $4.5 billion. That's what it represents. And what you do is, by the way, the legislature only controls a small portion overall because of voter protected spending that's gone in. But one thing I will tell you is we have dormant assets. We have resources that are underutilized. And when you start bringing those into bear, you can actually incrementally start moving this down on the income tax. And that's where we're going to go. And I'll tell you why we need to go there. Because we do need to recruit businesses coming in. And I will be the biggest cheerleader going out to businesses and telling them, we do have water, we do have power, we want you in Arizona because we do need those jobs. And we will get this economy rolling and rocking. But here's the bottom line. If you don't do that, then those businesses don't get incentivized to come here. If you don't deal with the tax structure that we have in Arizona, guess where they're going? And I know this. They're going to Texas. They're going to Tennessee. They're going to Florida. They're going to places that don't have that income tax. And we have various states in the Midwest now and in the Intermountain West that are all considering ways to eliminate their state income tax. We better be innovative and understand that this is a competition. We want those businesses here. And that's why when Governor Hobbs went out and insinuated to the New York Times that Arizona was out of water, she killed, literally, I happen to be in one of these places, $700 million worth of outside investment coming into Arizona. She killed it. That died within 2 days after she said it. And additional investment also died.
But if that money goes away, sir, your time, I just want to follow up because it's important. But the state income tax, if that goes away, the services that you'll have to cut, what would be on the table?
I'm not saying you're going to have to cut services per se. We didn't even get into the fraud. So let's talk fraud for just a second and see what's there. You've got Chris Mays who said, look, there's $2.5 billion. She's the Democrat AG. She said there's $2.5 billion worth of fraud in Medicaid. That's $2.5 billion. Why don't we recover that? Let's see what we can recover. Let's see what we can get back. Let's stop the fraud. There's the Indian Health Services fraud, which could be as high as up to $8 billion. That's being investigated right now. That's minimum $2.8 billion. If you start recovering and taking fraud out of the picture, how about when we start talking about the Medicaid expansion program? Estimates of over 50% of that is going to people who are not supposed to be getting those benefits. Why don't we make sure it's people who deserve the benefits and should be getting the benefits, get those benefits, and we stop the fraud elsewhere? When you do that, you're going to save a bunch of money. So that's just one thing. And then we start using resources. And I will just say this. I've talked about this relentlessly. One of the biggest dormant assets we have is 8.5 million acres of state trust land. Some of that is incredibly valuable. That goes into the trust rest, but there's interest that comes out, and we can fund school schools even better with that.
Mr. Biggs, thank you for that. That is your time. Mr. Neely, I want to turn to you. I saw you nodding your head during some parts of that. So,
Yeah, as
so what is your
Republicans, we
response to
can
that?
definitely all agree on a lot of things. As Republicans, we can definitely all agree on a lot of things. I agree with some of what Mr. Biggs says here. But one thing I would like to do differently is I would like to cut taxes for businesses across the board, big and small. And another thing I'd like to do, it's a bold idea, but I would like to cut property tax for those 65 and above, completely eliminate property tax for those 65 and above, because not only have they paid for their children to go to school, but they've also put my children through school. They paid for a couple of generations or more already. I think it's about time senior citizens get a break on property tax, a permanent break, so they can finally own their home outright. And as far as business goes, yes, we are behind Texas and Florida in attracting businesses because our business tax structure is not as attractive as Texas and Florida. We need to work on that. As far as income tax goes, we have a 2.5% flat tax. That's fine. We can keep it at that and keep it going. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Miceli, what are your thoughts on bringing more businesses to Arizona, kind of piggybacking off of what Mr. Neely just said?
I'm really glad you asked me that question. You know why? The first year, let me just back up, the property tax. The first year I'm governor, property tax will be reduced 50%. The second year, we will waive the property tax. There will be no property tax. How am I going to do that? I'm bringing in some of the top companies in the world here in Arizona. I've met with some of the largest CEOs that want to come and set up shop here in Arizona. And we're talking about 50,000 to 100,000 new jobs, good paying jobs for Arizona. And that's how we can innovate and waive the property taxes. So there's many things that we can do. As a businessman, you create a lot of potential to where you could use that money to put it back into our school system, into helping our hospitals, into helping medical. Those are the things that people want to see. Those are the things that we can do. When I'm governor, I will take the action to do this. As a businessman, I've got to perform. As a businessman, if I don't perform on the job, guess what? We don't get paid, right? So.
Thank you, Mr. Miceli. That is your allotted time. Thank you.
Yeah, and you brought up medical. That's another thing that's really gone up for Arizonans. So I want to address this to Congressman Biggs and Congressman Schweikert specifically, because during your recent terms in Congress, federal lawmakers allowed the enhanced Biden-era Affordable Care Act premium tax credits to expire, and as a result, the average Affordable Care Act premium or the premiums for Arizonans jumped nearly 30%, and more than 100,000 Arizonans lost their health care coverage altogether. And considering the financial strain that's placed on families, how do you justify letting those subsidies lapse, and what would you do as governor to help bring down those health care premiums, Mr. Schweikert?
Okay, let's go through this math because this is something I'm actually an expert on. And I beg of you, will someone here actually read budgets? Because a lot of the word salads so far have been absurd. This was a subsidy on top of a subsidy for the ACA, what we'll call it Obamacare, from COVID. The problem is every dime of that money was being borrowed by the federal government. We actually had a problem. We had almost a third of the population never used it, and a substantial number didn't even know that their broker had signed them up for it. So the level of misuse, fraud, the money's being paid to brokers, those things. At some point, we're going to have to deal with the reality of subsidization of everything in the economy is not going to work. So how do we solve our healthcare cost problems here in Arizona? You actually need a marketplace here that actually works. So let's actually take a look at access. Years ago, I actually used to do the budgets for the Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, our Medicaid system here in Arizona. After even looking at the sober living home fraud, those sorts of things, if you have a system that last year had 28.4% of our state's population receiving their health care from Access, our Medicaid system, this is uncomfortable to talk about. But you look at the health statistics when almost 50% of the spending in that population are to obesity-related illnesses. Wouldn't it be moral to come up with a holistic approach of saying, should we give someone an EBT card to buy onion rings? Why can't we help you on the nutrition side, the gamification to actually participate in a healthier lifestyle, and then we're going to help you on the waste management side. We've actually worked out a model. It's going to take 24 months, but in that third year, we believe we could save $400 to $500 million because we've helped our brothers and sisters get healthier in the system. That's actual working on the math and the planning.
Mr. Schweikert, thank you. And Mr. Biggs, over to you. And how would you help bring those premiums down? Because 24 months, a lot of people can't wait that long.
Yeah, here's the reality. In Congress, I introduced legislation to provide a greater expansion of health care benefits that would actually lower cost. All of the actuaries that we talked to said that they would lower cost. A guy named Eric Burleson from Missouri also did something similar. His was actually even more comprehensive than mine. And what that does is and President Trump's right on the money, where you're going to give money directly to that HSA, to that individual, so they can manage their health care. And you're going to provide incentives for better diets, making sure that you can get some exercise, so you do the pre-action, so you don't get sick, and you can handle that. Those are things that we've proffered in Congress. We've tried to get those on multiple bills. We've been told that one of them is going to come out on a bill. Let's see if it does. But in any event, that would actually help move the cost pressure down. I'll tell you one other thing that needs to happen in Arizona. We have a problem, and we're cranking out doctors, and we're going to have another medical school here pretty soon. You know what we need? We need residencies.
Mr. Biggs, that is your allotted time. Thank you so much. Let's switch and talk about education. That is something that has come up already here tonight. Arizona ranks 49th in the nation when it comes to per pupil spending. And so as governor, Mr. Miceli, we'll start with you on this. How would you balance giving parents choice without starving traditional public school budgets?
That's a great question, and I have an answer. The answer is trade schools. We need to implement more trade schools here in Arizona, and I'm a very big proponent of trade schools. An electrician, someone that repairs HVAC, air conditioning, they can do a 2-year term in trade schools and come out making $60,000, $80,000 a year. They could buy a house. And by the way, my housing plan, I can get people in housing for $5,000 to $10,000 that I work with CEOs and mortgage companies through the state of Arizona. And that's another issue. So we can not only get them going with their jobs at a reasonable pay, at a good pay. It's not traditional any longer. The education system needs to change, and we need to change with that. Some people want to go through the 4-year path of education. It doesn't work that way. Right now, we are in so much demand for people to help out with hospitals, with medical trainees. And I also have a plan where they're going to get paid while they're going to school to get certified. So that's where I'm at right now. Again, check out my Union State address, and you'll see each move and each answer that I'm coming up with right now. I'm just giving you a taste of what it's all about.
All right, Mr. Miceli, thank you for that. Mr. Neely, there's been a lot of criticism surrounding how the voucher money is actually being used. What changes, if any, should be made to ensure accountability with those tax dollars?
Talking about ESAs?
Talking about, yes, the school vouchers.
Okay. So as far as transparency in ESAs, I do think there should be some regulation on the ESAs and some transparency with that. And how the money's spent, but I also think we should expand ESAs. I believe in ESAs. And matters of fact, I want ESAs in trade schools. I want to merge those two together. I want small businesses to be able to team up with the ESA program. be provided incentive to train young people in the trades, in electrical, plumbing, concrete, framing, drywall. This is something that's necessary. It's an Arizona national and a national security issue if we don't get people back in the trades, because here's the thing. Salt River Project employees are in their 60s that are managing our water systems. Central Arizona Project employees, people at the nuclear power plant. They've actually incentivized older folks to come back to work because they can't find enough young people interested in the trades. So the only way to get them interested is we have to start them in high school. Now, Empire Caterpillar has a program with Mountain View High School where they bring kids in and train them for their junior and senior year. And by the time they get out of high school, they're making $80,000 a year. This is a wonderful program Empire Caterpillar has. They're a billion-dollar company, so they have the money to invest in that. But I think that we could incentivize our small businesses to do the same if we paired ESAs with small businesses. Small businesses can be the teachers of the future because not everybody's an academiac. Not everybody's headed to college. I certainly didn't go, and I'm doing fine. I'm on the stage running for governor, and I'm going to be your next Arizona governor. I'm going to implement the policy of trades through ESAs. This is going to happen. It's an important component in the future economy because the present economy is going to be consumed by robots. The present economy will be taken over by robots with these data centers. So trades, though they were the past, they are now the future. Vote Scott Neely for Arizona governor and go to neelyforgovernor.com. Thank you very much.
I want to make sure that we hear from both of you on education as well. So 1 minute response for this. Mr. Schweikert, is Arizona spending enough on education?
First, let's do the hierarchy. I'm a huge fan of education choice. Matter of fact, the first charter school bill years ago was one of mine. And having young children, we adopted a little girl 10 years ago, got a surprise 3 years ago, the same birth mother. The little boy was never supposed to be healthy. He is a miracle. I should, as a parent, have had optionality of where my little boy goes, particularly if he had some difficulties. Education choice is the future. It also, I would argue, it's one of our attractions for economic growth. And in your first question, I would disagree. The amount of money it's spent for me to choose homeschool or something here compared to what we spend for that same child in traditional education, there's a differential. You actually put some money back in the bank. The big battle for governor is we have a court case from last summer that says equalization is unconstitutional how we're doing it. We are going to have to rebuild a portion of our education financing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schweikert. That is that 1 minute time limit. Thank you. And Mr. Biggs, real quick, 1 minute. When it comes to the ESA vouchers, would you expand the program even more, keep it where it is? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on it is we should be expanding it fully. And Katie Hobbs is trying to actually crush educational freedom in this state. And she's siding with unions, and she's siding with administrators. She's going after educational choice. But every parent, I believe, has a more special interest in that child's education than an administrator. I think the people that are most important are going to be your student, your parents, and the actual teachers. And ESAs, actually, they're funded at roughly 70% of the traditional district schools. And you should actually expand the ESA program. If there's a fraud, one thing we found is if there's a fraud, the reason that you're hearing about it is because they're catching people if they fraudulently use ESAs. There's also tremendous fraud in the traditional system that we have to come in and find out and get that and stop that. And so I'm a big ESA proponent.
I want to touch on the election security, because a recent survey from the Clean Elections Commission shows election security and access are top of mind for people across the political spectrum, whether it's Democrats, Republicans, or independents. And I want to ask, we'll start with you, Mr. Neely, do you support the current mail-in voting system, making changes to it or replacing it with something different?
I support mail-in voting for veterans that are overseas or out of state for military service duties, and I support mail-in ballots for the disabled, the handicapped. But I don't support mail-in ballots or 27 days of voting with early ballots going out and an entire election season every election of 43 days when you include the 2 weeks that it takes to count the votes. So no, what I would propose is 1 day, 1 vote on paper, in person, no private owned ballot drop boxes. We can use the post office drop boxes. And I propose we go that route. Now, Trump's Save America Act doesn't go that far, but I would go that far in the state of Arizona. I would sign a bill like that if it was on my desk. John Fillmore had a bill like that many years ago, HB 2289. I would have signed that bill as governor. That would have streamlined the election process. That would have eliminated fraud in the system or potential fraud in the system. And it would have made elections fair, free, honest. So that's how I would do that. Now, let's get past that. As far as Medicaid, I didn't get to answer that question. So Medicaid's aid, it's a safety net. It's not a hammock that we should have perpetually. It's not a lifestyle, okay? It's to get you on your feet and get you going, but it's not something that you should live on forever. We do need to look at the Medicaid system. We do need to look at redundancies in that system, and we need to cut fraud where possible. And we need to look into the massive fraud that was going on in the Native American community with regard to that Medicaid system that Andy had mentioned over there. So I agree with Andy on that. We need to look into that fraud. I believe it's like $4 billion of fraud was done in that particular system. Was it 2.8? Okay, he's numbers guy, 2.8. So $2.8 billion in fraud in the state of Arizona. And what happened? Nobody went to jail. I think somebody got fined. He was from California, but nobody went to jail. I would have prosecuted that case and made sure they went to jail.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. That is your time, and we are getting close, so I want to make sure that we can hear from the rest of you. Mr. Schweikert, 1 minute. What are your thoughts on mail-in voting and the current system?
Look, we've had mail-in voting that was passed in 1991 and then been expanded. We actually don't have absentee ballots really in Arizona. We have a vote through mail system. I do have a legitimate concern. My mother, who passed away, I miss her terribly, in 2010, she was still getting ballots up to, I think, 2020, 2022, because we gave the house to my brother. Cleaning up the voter rolls, updating the fact that this is you with some type of ID, with actually you're going to have a system that ultimately updates signatures. Think about how different someone that may have registered 30 years ago, because you met the signature verification. But we have to deal with the reality. Our voters like the mail-in balloting system. 84% of our votes will be coming through the mail in this primary.
Thank you, and your minute is up. Mr. Biggs.
Thank you. You know, Governor Hobbs was given a bill in January of 2025 that would have taken us and given us the Florida standard. And the Florida is the gold standard of voting now, voting integrity now. It really is. It's the top. And they still have mail-in ballots over there, but they control those better. And you know, the night of the election, who won? That's what I will actually sign that bill when it comes back. But I'll tell you this: if you're going to talk about election integrity, and you know that the Congress is going to fail, I believe Congress is ultimately going to fail on the Save America Act. So you're not going to see any wholesale reforms there. The state needs to make some reforms. And we need to make sure that when you send in a ballot and you're signing there, the verification of that system is, as Jimmy Carter put it, the most likely to fail for fraud.
Well, even after, we should point out that after millions of taxpayer dollars were spent on investigations and audits, that the outcomes from 2020 and subsequent elections, they weren't changed by fraud that was found. Mr. Miceli, what are your thoughts on mail-in voting?
Well, my thought is a different level. It's called biometrics. Biometrics, what basically it claims that you are the person that you say you are. A, that you're alive. 2, that you're a citizen. And 3, that you're able to vote. Now, a lot of people might say, well, what about my privacy? Well, no, this is a system through the state where it's only kept in the state. So no one else has the information. But do you know how many people that have passed away that voted last year and continue to vote? Do you know how many people that are not citizens that try to vote. The biometrics is a safeguard to this. Very simple. You can get it through the mail to apply, and I recommend it highly. It's a safeguard.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miceli, and thank you to all of you candidates for being here. It's now time for closing statements already. Each one of you will have 1 minute, and so we ask that you please stick to that time as best as you can. Scott Neely, you have the first closing statement.
Thank you. My name's Scott Neely. I'm a candidate for Arizona governor. I have a lot of policy solutions on my website at neelyforgovernor.com, where you can learn how I can better the state of Arizona with you the people. I am the voice of the people. We the people are fed up. We're tired of lifetime politicians running our state. And I will be the candidate that brings actual change to the state of Arizona. I will be bold. I will be fearless. I will be with you, Arizona. I am Arizona first. I'm American first. AFAF, Arizona first, America first, always. Unapologetically. I've taken no money from outside lobbies. I've taken no large PAC monies. I'm the only clean elections candidate in the race, and currently I have more money in my war chest than either of these two politicians on this stage. I've got $1.2 million of clean elections money in my war chest that I'm going to be launching in the media next week. Thank you very much. Vote Scott Neely for Arizona governor.
Mr. Biggs, over to you for your closing statement.
Thank you. I have to ask Arizona, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago under Governor Katie Hobbs' leadership? Katie Hobbs has taken us down at various times to be in the bottom 5 for wage growth, job growth, and currently at number 43 with affordability. Housing prices have shot up. She's attacked parental choice and freedom in education. This is what she has done, and all the time she's done it, she's been under criminal investigation for a pay-for-play scheme. I remain optimistic for this state because under Governor Andy Biggs' administration, we're going to restore the American dream to Arizona. We're going to make sure that we have our security in place. We're going to have the infrastructure for water, power, education, the tax and regulatory infrastructure that will allow us to grow again to be one of the top states economically. I ask for your vote, I ask for your support, and I thank you.
All right, thank you. And David Schweikert, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
As fellow Republicans, are you tired of losing? We have to deal with a reality that's going on in Arizona. As of a couple of weeks ago, we have more independents than we have Republicans. We've lost the senior senator, the junior senator, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the governor over the last decade. Losing is unacceptable. If you want to protect elections, if you want to protect education choice, if you want to protect a 3.5% flat tax rate based on adjusted gross income, where we don't tax Social Security, where we don't tax military retirement, losing is devastating to the future of this state. And the fact of the matter is, take a look at our history. My friend at the end, I know this is tough with us running against each other, but when you're wholly owned by Turning Point and you've lost election and lost election and lost election, it puts everything in our future at risk. Let's make America, let's make Arizona the state that prospers again.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Miceli, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Thank you. Well, right now, gas is at $4.43 a gallon, one of the highest in the nation. We could do something about that. Did you know that we buy our gas from California, which pays for their regulations and a lot of their taxes? I have negotiated with different vendors a different approach where we can get our gas and energy cheaper. Two, we at each end of the roll here, we have Mr. Schweikert that has had 11 ethic violations against him where he's had to pay $175,000 in fines. To my right, Mr. Biggs, on January 6th, called to get the Arizona electoral votes thrown out. That's not leadership. I'm a businessman. I can't do that. I've got to be straight, right on, and to the point. Vote me as your next governor, and I'll prove to you that this state is going to be in the best shape it's ever been in. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and thank you to all of you on the stage tonight. This wraps this primary debate with the Republican candidates for Arizona's governor. As a reminder, the Arizona primary election is on July 21st, and early voting starts June 24th. All registered voters can participate in the primary, including independents. The voter registration deadline is June 22nd. If you would like to register to vote, head to azcleanelections.gov.
There are a lot of offices up for election this year, and so we will keep hosting debates through the summer and fall. Head to azmedia.org to see a list of every local media partner, plus upcoming debates, and where you can find them on TV, radio, and digital platforms.
And you can also see the full debate schedule, learn more about clean elections, and submit questions for future debates by heading to azcleanelections.gov. On behalf of our partners at Clean Elections, the Arizona Media Association, Reister, and Sneaky Big Studios, we thank you for joining us.